In the book Touch the Earth, a self-portrait of Indian existence by T.C. McClellan, Chief Luther Standing Bull of the Oglala Band of Sioux is quoted saying, "We did not think of the great open plains, the beautiful rolling hills, and winding streams with tangled growth as wild. Only to the white man was nature a wilderness. Only to him was the land infested with wild animals and savage people. To us, it was tame. Earth was bountiful, and we were surrounded with the blessings of the great mystery. The land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Awaswas-speaking Upi tribe. Today, the Amamutsan Land Trust is restoring natural land stewardship, traditional land stewardship, to ensure the ancestors of both the Awaswas and Mutsun-speaking people are honored and never forgotten."
Our reading today is from Robin Wall Kimmerer. Kimmerer is a scientist, professor, mother, and member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. In her book, The Serviceberry: Abundance and Reciprocity in the Natural World, Kimmerer shares her story of a linguist named Daniel Everett who was learning from a hunter-gatherer community in Brazil. Kimmerer writes, "He observed that the hunter had brought home a sizable kill, far too much to be eaten by his family. The researcher asked how he would store the excess. Smoking and drying technologies were well known, so storing was possible. The hunter was puzzled by the question. Store the meat? Why would he do that? Instead, he sent out an invitation to a feast, and soon the neighboring families were gathered around his fire until every last morsel was consumed." This seemed like maladaptive behavior to the anthropologist, who said again, "Given the uncertainty of meat in the forest, why didn't the hunter store the meat for himself, which is what the economic system of his home culture would predict?" "Store my meat?" replied the hunter. "I store my meat in the belly of my brother." I feel a great debt to this unnamed teacher for these words. There beats the heart of gift economies, an antecedent alternative to market economies, another way of organizing ourselves to sustain lives. In a gift economy, wealth is understood as having enough to share, and the practice for dealing with abundance is to give it away. In fact, status is determined not by how much one accumulates, but by how much one gives away. The currency in a gift economy is relationship, which is expressed as gratitude, as interdependence, and the ongoing cycles of reciprocity. A gift economy nurtures the community bones that enhance mutual well-being. The economic unit is we rather than I, as all flourishing is mutual. Good morning, Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Santa Cruz County. And thank you so much, choir. That is one of my favorite hymns, and that was just gorgeous. It's so good to be with you via the wonder of technology, to worship with you across time and distance. I'm grateful for this invitation to join you and to the incredible team that made this service possible. Terry, Bob, Jordan, Randy, Chuck, and Allison, thank you so much. And I'm also grateful to have this opportunity to share with you some of the work that UUSC is doing with our grassroots partners here and around the world with your generous support. The Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC, is an international human rights organization grounded in Unitarian Universalism that has been a powerful force for justice since its founding in 1940 in response to the rise of Nazism. UUSC's work is based on a partnership model that centers the experience and leadership of the people who are most impacted by injustice. This partnership includes support of some of the scrappiest, most creative, and courageous groups of people you can imagine who are working for justice, often under very dangerous conditions. We work with over 70 grassroots partners in 20 countries, including the United States. In the 6 years that I've been working with UUSC, I've had the privilege of meeting many of these partners and hearing their stories of devastation, resilience, imagination, and hope. Our global partners show us again and again that the oppressive systems that operate in the world are not inevitable. Other ways of being, ones that center community care, accountability, and global solidarity, are possible. And they come about when people choose to act from a place of love rather than fear. When small acts of courage, imagination, and gratitude build upon each other. I've been thinking a lot about the words I shared from Robin Wall Kimmerer's serviceberry book. In the book, Kimmerer uses the example of the serviceberry bush to explore the abundance inherent in the gift economies that proliferate in the natural world. The serviceberry offers its fruit lavishly to humans, to deer, to birds, to insects, to the earth itself, because doing so ensures the health of the ecosystem in which it lives. The plant can only thrive and propagate through sharing its own abundance with the world around it. All flourishing is mutual. I've been thinking about these words now in this particular season of contradictions. In our land, we are in a season of harvest, a season that echoes through the memories of our ancestors as one of gratitude for the earth and the labor that made another year of life possible. A time for gathering with community to share food and stories as we prepare for the more insular winter months. And now in our land, we are also in a season of immense cruelty and manufactured scarcity. We are witnessing our neighbors abducted from their homes, from our courtrooms, and off our streets. Our communities, children, elders, and so many others are being deprived of food in an attempt to force political capitulation. Those with little to begin with are being forced to try to survive with even less so that the wealthiest can be allowed to hoard still more. It's maddening, isn't it? To witness such destruction and malice, all while knowing it doesn't have to be this way, while believing that survival is not a zero-sum game, while rejecting a worldview that says that everything and everyone is ultimately a commodity to be sold, used, exploited, and discarded in service of profit and the power that profit brings. A model that ranks all of creation as mine or not mine, or perhaps not mine yet. For those of us with deep wells of empathy and strong ethical convictions, it is literally painful to witness the harms being inflicted all around us. We can use this pain as an excuse to look away, or, as many of us are doing, we can use it as an incitement to action. When we view our world, our fellow humans, our very existence as the gifts they are, as opposed to resources we might control or discard according to our whims, gratitude becomes the center of our lives. If everything is a gift, then the natural response is gratitude. Kimmerer calls this a gift economy. In a gift economy, she writes, the currency in circulation is gratitude and connection rather than goods or money. A gift economy includes a system of social and moral agreements for indirect reciprocity rather than direct exchange. So the hunter who shared the feast with you today could well anticipate that you would share from a full fish net or offer your labor in repairing a boat in the future. The prosperity of the community grows from the flow of relationships, not in the accumulation of goods. When the natural world is understood as a gift instead of private property, there are ethical constraints on the accumulation of abundance that is not yours to own. Gifts are not meant to be hoarded and thus made scarce for others, but to be given away, which generates sufficiency for all. In a gift economy, wealth is understood as having enough to share, and the practice for dealing with abundance is to give it away. Our UUSC partners modeled this idea of the gift economy in so many ways. My colleague at UUSC, Myra Dagapa, recently visited some of our partners in Ukraine. And I want to share with you Myra's reflection from her journey because it speaks to the way UUSC prioritizes relationships and systemic change in the ways our partners continually inspire transformation and hope that ripple out and intersect. Myra said, "My most challenging day came in Mokotwa. There I encountered Ukraine's largely invisible Roma community. 14,000 people facing systemic discrimination that predates the war. Here, families live next to garbage dumps while children with brilliant minds are denied education and skilled workers are barred from employment, all because of their ethnicity. Yet even in the face of such injustice, I found remarkable innovation. Young Roma women started a beauty business, traveling to clients when they weren't welcome in traditional salons. Women gathered around sewing machines, creating not just clothing, but economic independence. What gives me hope is how achievable meaningful change really is. For less than $12,000, we could establish a sewing enterprise, transforming dozens of women's economic prospects. For the cost of a single conference, we could create an educational center serving 25 Roma children currently denied schooling. These aren't just donations, they're investments in systemically oppressed human potential. The return isn't just economic, it's the reclamation of dignity and the creation of opportunity pathways that were never supposed to exist. UUSC seeds grants, which are strategic investments designed to make these transformative impacts. I returned from Ukraine connected to the profound possibility, not naive optimism, but hard-won knowledge that committed people can create islands of hope that eventually become continents of change. Ukrainian civil society demonstrates that ordinary people can create extraordinary change when they refuse to believe that suffering is inevitable. They're not waiting for permission or perfect conditions. They're creating the change they want to see, one person, one project, one act of courage at a time. We often feel overwhelmed by the scale of global problems, but Ukraine taught me differently. Transformation happens through small acts of courage, sustained over time by people who refuse to accept that the way things are is the way they must be. And that, more than any headline, is what hope looks like in practice. UUSC Director of Advocacy, Solote Soko, recently attended the Pacific Rising convening in Fiji, the third such gathering of community-based organizations from the Pacific. This convening was made possible by UUSC and the Climate Justice Resilience Fund. The agenda focused on culturally appropriate decolonial processes that integrate inclusive storytelling to share learnings of non-economic loss and damage impacts and strategies, gender and intersectionality, experiences and challenges around grant distribution, and determining next steps to leverage regional and global visibility and advocacy. Slote left the Pacific Rising convening to go directly to New York City to attend the UN's General Assembly and Climate Week events that were taking place there. Reflecting on the shift of atmosphere between the two events, Salote wrote, "Our Pacific partners' diligent hope fuels their innovative solutions. Hope supports their efforts to transform systems. In contrast, members of the UN and participants in New York's Climate Week broadly exhibit panicked hopelessness that drastically restricts their ability to understand and enact meaningful solutions. Global grassroots leaders were notably missing from the New York events, limiting the relevance, effectiveness, and creativity of the proceedings. The people most impacted by the climate crisis aren't afforded the luxury of hopelessness. They must continue to cultivate the belief that through collective action, a different future is possible. Grassroots leaders know that the future depends upon our collaboration, our faith, and our creativity. Again, our partners are showing us what hope looks like in practice. One of UUSC's long-standing partners in El Salvador is Cristosal. Cristosal has a long history of defending victims of government abuse through legal advocacy and strategic litigation, as well as documenting such abuses through forensic research and preserving historical memory. In May of this year, Cristosal's chief legal officer of anti-corruption, Ruth Lopez, was abducted by government forces in her home and disappeared. She's now a political prisoner without any contact with her family or colleagues. Her health and safety remain unknown. Following Ruth's arrest, the rest of the Cristosal staff was forced to flee their offices in San Salvador and move across the borders into Guatemala and Honduras. Noah Bullock, executive director of Cristosal, told us that even with this level of repression, there is resistance. There's no guarantee that tomorrow everything will change, but the actions we take today contribute to a longer process, even if we don't see the outcomes in our lifetime. Even if we never enjoy the results of our advocacy, we have a historic responsibility to push forward. Our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, our global partners, this congregation, every mutual aid and global solidarity effort, each food pantry, voting drive, costumed ICE facility protest, and pro-democracy rally, all of these actions are what hope looks like in practice. These are actions we take not because we are guaranteed that tomorrow everything will change, but because we have a responsibility to push forward. Our justice-loving ancestors are showing us the way. Our global partners in the movement for human rights and climate justice are showing us the way. Our Unitarian Universalist values are showing us the way. Together, we will mourn, resist, disrupt, heal, weep, sing, dance, and imagine. We will store our wealth in the bellies of our siblings, sharing abundantly so that all may live, planting seeds of justice wherever we are. Together we will persevere because all flourishing is mutual. I want to lift you up, UU Fellowship of Santa Cruz County, for the vital role that you play in this larger story of global solidarity, resistance to oppression, and modeling what hope looks like in practice. This congregation is deeply committed, both locally and beyond, to the work of caring for our neighbors, be they down the street or across the globe. That is who you are. That is what your love looks like in the world. The number of UUSC members in this congregation has doubled in recent years to nearly 30%, and that is phenomenal. And I bet we could get that number even higher. A gift of any amount makes you a UUSC member. And if you've not yet given to UUSC through the Guest at Your Table program, or have not given in a long time, Thank you for considering making a gift today. Transformation happens through small acts of courage, sustained over time by people who refuse to accept that the way things are is the way they must be. Your support of UUSC is one of these acts, sustained over time, embodying gratitude and practicing hope. Together, along with our grassroots partners and justice seekers the world over, we are nurturing a new world into being. So thank you, friends. I'm so grateful that we're in this work together. Blessed be, and amen.